So hi everyone, my name is Arvind and I am back as your host for the Music Industry Talks. It is our summer edition of the webinar series. All throughout the month of August, each Friday at 4 p.m., we will be spotlighting a new independent Canadian musician. Of course, thank you so much for joining us today. We do want to give you and everybody else some time to settle in, okay? We do ask that if you can, please share this link so that your friends and everyone in your network can also see this video. We really want as many people as we can to come and join us live today. So take some time at Sincop8ed Noize. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram. We do have a new YouTube channel. You can be a professional networker, and on LinkedIn, we're there as well, okay? So as we let people come in and join us, I am gonna give you about 10 to maybe 25 seconds, and then we'll get ready. Okay, and then as we're waiting, okay, I do want to say a little bit about Sincop8ed Noize Foundation and what we do here. Of course, we are a non-profit organization, and we look to spotlight independent Canadian musicians, give them support and promotion, and especially want to spotlight them during this global pandemic, this crisis in which artists do not have the support and promotion of their own, and we want to provide that for them, just like this through a webinar series. So that's what we do at Sincop8ed Noize. And today we are doing that for a very special member of Canada's musical talent. They are from the Cree Indigenous community. They are based out of Montreal, Quebec. Okay. In 2014, they had a compilation album created by Nwe Janan, shot to #1 on iTunes on its very first day. Okay. Since then, they have been on various stages, have recorded multiple albums, multiple features on records. They have graced their presence as an absolute change maker. Okay, they lead the way for the Cree Indigenous community, the LGBTQIA community, and all of Canada's emerging musical talent. They had a debut single, Love Is Up the River, which had over 17,000 streams on Spotify and hit top 10 on NCI FM National Indigenous Music Countdown. They had a July release of their debut solo album, For Those I Love or Loved. We'll talk about that in a second, what that title means. It was #2 and remains #2 on Canadian pop charts. Please welcome, they are the one, the only, Angel Baribeau.
Hello, Wadeg. Thank you for having me.
Hi, Angel. Say hi to our audience and give them a little bit about you. Quick intro.
So, Wadeg, my name is Angel. I'm from the USG, the Cree Nation, Eastern James Bay Cree Territory here in northern Quebec. Currently, I'm in Montreal, but I've lived my whole, or almost my whole life in Mistissini. I also moved around a lot as a kid, and my first language when I was born was actually Cree, but in like the true Canadian fashion, it became English. So even though right now I'm in the process of like relearning my language, I'm still actively trying to follow that, and I'm making music, which is wonderful, and I'm getting to like spread my message and getting to talk to people from all over the world, which is really nice. Yeah, and I'm really happy to be here making and talking about music with y'all. Yes.
And we're so happy to have you. So awesome that you made the time to join us here today. And we do want to talk about you, your music, your journey here. And we want to share your story and how it can help other people who may be around Canada or all over the world who resonate with you and your talent. So can you tell us the first time you had a touch point with music, how music was introduced to you?
I have a very I feel like music's just been woven into my life in so many different ways. Like my grandmother, she had mental illness, but she like took care of me when I was growing up. And one of the things that I would always see her do was play her guitar. And even it like she was hard of hearing, so she didn't always hear when the guitar was out of tune. And you saw her skills were still there, you know, and she was like just muscle memory. It was just like things that she'd been doing for so long. And I felt like seeing my gokum like use like music, it really did soothe her. And even though she was hard of hearing, like she never stopped, like to this day, she's never stopped loving music. So that was kind of like my first point, like entry point. Also was like traveling a lot in my territory with my dad because he worked down south, and so I would have to travel with him sometimes, like going down south often. And in those long car rides, we just listen to all these like bands that this old man loved to listen to, and in turn they became like some of my heroes. And but like my real, like I think when I would consider myself like a practicing like musician was when I was 13 years old. At the time I did not even acknowledge that I was an artist. I didn't acknowledge that I was a singer. I didn't like acknowledge any of these things. Okay. My identity was just like, it was like I was 13 years old. I was just trying to figure out like who the heck I was, and I'm like still like on the tail end of that, and probably continuously gonna have to work through that. But so I didn't acknowledge that I was a singer songwriter. And a friend of mine, she was working for the school, my high school. And what happened was during that time, my now manager, David Hodges, he was coming through the territory to like give talks about like his career in music, and, you know, like what music is, like not what it is, obviously we know what music is, but more about like his journey and his path to being a music creator. And so when he went through this, like when he went through my territory, he brought like a mobile production studio, and instead of just talking to the youth, he ended up making songs with them. And when he did that, he came to my community, and at this point he already knew he was the third community that he'd come to visit in my territory. So at this point he'd known that he was going to make music. Right. So what happened was I was never going to go to that thing. I was never going to go to that thing because like I said, I didn't acknowledge myself as a singer-songwriter or anything, as an artist even. And my friend Christina, who, like I said, was working for the school, she literally like came to find me, dragged me into the room, and held my hand the whole time to make sure I didn't run away. And from that point, like I'd shared some lyrics with David, and then David, like, he's like, what, like, you in the back of the room, like, come over here, like, come in the front. And so like I nervously walked to the front, and I'm like, yep. And I show him the lyrics, and he says, yeah, you write lyrics, but you're a songwriter too, eh? Like he didn't actually, like, it wasn't the question, it was like, you're a songwriter, like, I mean, no, sorry, you're a singer. Like it wasn't a question, it was a statement. And he never heard me sing, so it was like, just like, I was like, maybe, yes, maybe. And so in that workshop, that was the first time it'd ever been recorded, and that's when I heard myself for the first time. And when I heard myself on like professional quality equipment, like it's one thing to like record yourself on your phone and listen to it with your phone's quality, but to listen to yourself with like something that's made to record voice, it was mind blowing. And it was like, I was like, what? I am a singer. I am a singer.
You know, that's fine. So you liked the sound. You loved it. Like when you heard yourself?
I mean, like, it was more of like, it was just a part, like it was the first piece that was put into place. You know what I mean? Like that was just like it really was just the beginning. It really was. Cause I was 13 years old. I had no idea like what the music industry was. I was just like, I like songs. I like to make noises. Right.
I make noises too, but I've never, it's never really produced a rhythmic talent before. So you have rhythmic talent. So don't say you just produce noise. That's not true. That's right. We all know that. So that's really cool. So 13 years old, that's the first time you heard yourself at 13. Yeah. But you've been practicing before that, right?
Yes and no, not really actually. I sang, of course. Like I feel like it's any, like even if you like you're not a singer, like to sing is so primal. It's so embedded in us as human beings that it's just like, that's probably why I didn't consider myself a singer, because I was just like, everybody sings,
right.
You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wild.
So that's the first time, like, you even have an audience, like other people are listening to you at that time. Have you been listened to by an audience before that as well?
I guess like Christmas concerts. I remember, I see, and now I think back to it, I do remember my teachers used to strategically place me in front of the microphone, but
Okay.
like it
Smarter.
didn't click. It didn't click.
Fair enough. It clicks now, though. It
Yep.
clicks now. It was the voice. It was the voice. So you've been on stages kind of your whole life. You just didn't even realize you were on stage.
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
I did my first public speaking when I was 3 or 4 years old.
Okay.
So
Wow.
but I wasn't singing, I was just speaking in public.
That was, do you remember what that was? Like, what were you doing?
It was so in my and I think it's a thing like all over Canada, or at least all over Quebec, where we have like public speaking competitions. And
Nice.
so there was one for my community, which is like the local one, and I think I placed like third or something.
Nice.
I don't know, don't quote me on that. I might have gotten nothing. I have no idea. I was like 3 or 4 years old. I have no idea. But yeah, it was the first time I spoke on stage.
I don't know, for all we know, you might have placed first and you're just being humble. You seem very humble on your side. So
my manager would disagree with you.
Oh, really? Yeah, because the manager sees the behind the set.
Sometimes he says like I have to be the one to keep your head from getting too big. And I appreciate that from him.
Well, that's good. Well, no manager here, so you can, your head can explode for all we care. Okay. It's only 40 minutes. It'll balloon back down when your manager comes back, right? It's okay.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. So we already know about your stage stuff. Did you have like musical direction? Did you take like education in it, or is this just free flowing? You developed it on your own?
I definitely I worked with other artists. I definitely okay. So actually, it would be a lie if I said I had no education, because I definitely did have. So okay. Ooh, buckle in, friends.
Okay.
So, like I said, David came through my territory, and when he came through my territory, the tour itself was called Norwegian, and it means we live here. And he like kind of adapted it from another project he had done with the Anglophone and Francophone communities of Quebec. It was called Notre Home, so our home.
Okay.
And so he had kind of adapted it to fit us, right? Because we're talking about our home, like in a different context. And so essentially what happened was Norwegian was like this like little like album, right? Like this little like, it was literally just like a music thingy. It was an album, it was a collection of songs. And what happened was the following year, David was approached by my nation's government, my nation's our school board. And he was approached to write this program that would be owned by my school board, but implemented in our schools. So he said yes. And he totally he was like, I'm going to do this. And then he was like, I don't know how to do this. So he got some really dope human beings to help build his team. And together they made this wonderful program, and they handed it back to my Cree school board. And this Cree school board was like, cool, now run it. And so they had to run it. And I was in their first class. I was in their first classroom, and I was their first graduate. So this program is right. It's an arts concentration program. So what they do is they bring in residencies to your communities and your schools, and they do their artist residencies where they teach you about their medium. So I was one of those students that just got a butt ton of all these artists to just pour all of their knowledge, or as much of their knowledge as they possibly could, into me and into my peers. So the reason I practice so many different art forms, and I practice so many different art forms. The reason being is because I had all these amazing human beings come into my classroom and dedicate their time and their efforts in that knowledge transfer. And it's actually really cool is that I was their first graduate, and I went back to be artist in residence. So
amazing. You do full circle, and now you do that for the Indigenous community, and you go around and you do the exact same thing. You transfer this knowledge.
Thank you, man.
Which is awesome. So out of all the people that influenced you during that time when you were getting all that transfer of knowledge, anyone that sticks out, and any specific things that they told you that stick out? Anything?
There were so many things. I think, I'm not even sure who said this to me, but I remember, I can't remember which one of the artists, because there's so many, right? So many. I was in the program for 3 years, and there's at least four to three residencies per year. So like that's a lot of that's a lot of mediums.
Right.
So one of them told me like there is no mistake in your art. If it's what like you feel you want to put out there, then it's not a mistake. I mean, maybe you'll look back at it later and be like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But at the time, it's like it was your truth, right? And I think I really love that concept of the, even though like maybe what I write about now, I won't have like such an attachment to it. And I'm even seeing that like my relationship to the songs now are changing, and actively just continuously changing. But like at one point I felt that way. And at one point, those emotions, like no matter how much time passes, those emotions deserve to be honored.
Right.
What we feel, what we know is our truth deserves to be honored, right? We are all worthy of that. And yeah, it's like
that's very cool. I know that's a really good message. Your musical journey has obviously been adapted. A lot of things have happened since that first time at 13 years old, recording and listening to yourself until now. What do you think has influenced you the most for your current projects? Was it somebody, was it a specific artist? Maybe it was in that drive with your dad all the time. Who's your influence? How have they influenced you? And how does that come out in your music today?
I feel like I spoke a little bit about my grandmother earlier. And even for one of the songs that I wrote about having to, well, in the song you're hearing it from the perspective of someone who's at the end of their lifetime, and who is talking about like that acceptance of like having lived a whole life and doing things that within that life and what it means to be alive. I didn't write about what it means to be alive because that would be way too much. That would be way too much for my song. But it's actually addressing having lived a full life of, living through adolescence and making through adulthood and becoming an elder, and like getting to that end when you've reached that honor point where it's like, yes, I've seen babies be born, I've seen people die, and I've lived through it all, and I've felt everything, and I'm ready for this next step. Because I feel like when even though my gokom's still here, I feel like she's been holding on for a really long time. And that like her, even though she's not like, I don't see her every day, she's still a huge part of my identity and like who I turn out to be, because she helped raise me. And like even in that public speaking contest, I went there because of her, because she made me memorize a book. And I spoke I spoke in that book. I spoke about that book, and because of her, like she, like so many things that she gave me that I didn't even realize until I was older. Like this woman was strong and terrifying, really scary. Yeah. A scary woman, but she's so strong. Okay. And even in this part of her life where I feel like it, it's in the in between being here and going, she's still so strong. And I just like she's definitely somebody that's influenced me and continues to influence me, because even though I haven't seen her in probably about a year, I still pray about her. I still I still think about her all the time, and the implications of like what her life meant to mine and to my family.
Very cool. It's awesome that you had that touch point with someone who influenced you so much, and you're able to carry on, to kind of their spirit of who they were. And you're able to carry that on either through yourself and how you live your life, but also through your music, which is really cool. So with that being said, I know that during, growing up, you had other challenges as well. What kind of challenges did you have to face emerging as an artist in order to now have an album, a single that is streaming on Spotify, be able to tour nationally? What are big challenges that you had to overcome?
I think the biggest challenge that I've had to overcome is myself.
Okay.
My own mentality, my own like beliefs, like my belief in myself was just, I questioned it all the time. Okay. And like I said, like in the beginning, I didn't even acknowledge that I was a singer. That really does speak to like really poor self-esteem. Okay. And it's really like my biggest obstacle has been myself. And my dad is like, my dad is always quick to point that out, where it's like, you know, you're capable of so much, kid. You can do so much, and you are your own problem. You are the only person stopping you. And once I really took that to heart, when I realized that I want myself to succeed. I want to be able to do the things I talk about. I want to be able to serve my communities. I want to be able to put love out into this world and have it come back. Like I want to be able to do those things, but it was myself that was blocking me. It was myself that was getting in my own way. And like I will definitely say that like depression 100% had something to play with that. Like in had a role to play in that. Because I like to this day, I'm still somebody that suffers with that kind of mental illness and like what it means to go through those, like that lens in life. Okay. Because I'm a person. I'm a real person, just like everybody else. I'm just a human being.
Yeah.
And every day is like a continuous process of like choosing to better my life, choosing to live for my gukum, to live for my gukums and my jumshums and all those people that like died and prayed for their children to have good lives. Like that's what I'm trying to be about, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Good. Keep going. Let me speak for our entire audience. Absolutely. We want your love. Do not be depressed. Put it out in the world. We want it. Okay. Keep coming out with it. So we're happy to hear that you're able to overcome that. I think a lot of people can resonate with that, myself included, where there are times where we hit this spell where we just don't think we're enough. And we don't think that we're doing the right things. Maybe we don't want to share the certain things that live inside us, whether it's our mindset or we're just fearful and insecure about our craft. How did you overcome that? What kind of things did you do? I know that at 13 years old, you had to get your friend to force you out onto the stage, but I mean, no one's forcing you now. So how are you able to get yourself to overcome that type of challenge?
See, here's the thing about when you like talk about mental illness, right? Like, yes, like a lot of it is on you to like outwardly search for that help, but it's that help also that is the biggest aspect of healing. It's great to want to have help, but also to not be able to have access. Like it's a barrier, right? So like the only way I made it through was because I had a support system. I had social workers that loved me, that like took care of me. I had mothers. I've had so many mothers in my life. That's one of the things that I'm so grateful for. Like some people don't even have a mom, and I had 5. I had 5 moms. Like they all loved me in one way or another. They like poured their love into me and made sure that even though I am meant, like I have this mental illness, that I'm worth more and my life is worth living. And I think that's definitely like you need to surround yourself by people that can support you in that way, that people that like only want the best for you, that want your life, want you to live your life. And people that are not serving you that purpose, don't be around them, because they're not there to make your life better. They're not there to serve your greater purpose or the collective greater purpose. They're not going to serve you, you know, and you have to surround yourself by people that will serve you and that you can serve in that way. Right. That's the only way to heal is to be willing to heal and to surround yourself with things that you feel are healing. And whatever that looks like is going to be different to everybody. Like for me, that healing looked like looking for elders to give me cultural lessons and teachings, because that was something I felt that I just didn't get. Even though I grew up in the bush, I grew up going to the camp a lot, and I grew up, you know, like with my siblings and all my like little cousins and nephews and nieces. I felt like the cultural like things that I was searching for that were more like spiritual in that way, I didn't have access to. And even currently now, I'm actively working to find those elders and to continuously like build those relationships so that that knowledge transfer can continue to happen. And that's my journey, right? And that could be the same journey for other people, like people that are searching for that ancestral knowledge and that reconnection. Like that's super important too. It doesn't matter what ethnicity or race or color or whatever. Like it doesn't matter what that is for you. Just like searching for those things are just as powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, before the show, me and Angel were prepping, and I asked her, "Is the Indigenous Cree community where she's from?" that's how she identifies from that community. And a lot of her influence, as we can clearly tell, comes from her family and those members of her community. But there's other ways that she identifies as well, which is really cool about Angel. She talked about how some of her music, it feeds into not just, you know, the people that she identifies with. She wants to make music for kind of everyone. And that's the gist that she gave me. But I want to hear it from you, Angel. Tell our audience, you know, what kind of message you want to give to people from all communities and why you're doing this.
First thing I want to say is it's okay to take up your space. For example, one couple parts of my identity, right? My identity is I am non-binary queer person, right? And I'm an Indigenous person. And I say woman sometimes, but only because I believe there's a power in that title, the title of being a woman, like that there's power in that. And I really like woman with the X, because then it's more inclusive of like folks like me, right? So I'm non-binary. And one of the things that sorry, can you read? I totally derailed. Can you just, can you read the question?
No, that's okay. I mean, first, thank you for identifying the ways that you identify. Awesome.
Yes. Okay, I remember now.
You're okay. Awesome.
I remember now.
Go ahead.
So in my identity, right, I've learned that coming to identify as these things and outwardly telling these people, telling people in my life about my identity and the things that I'm discovering and the things I've discovered and continuously are discovering. It's okay to want to take up that space. Like for the longest time, even though I knew that my gender wasn't exactly like what my body presents as, I just allowed, I just never really talked about it. I was just like, all right, it is what it is. And it wasn't until I started working with the organization that I worked with, where I spoke with one of my colleagues / friends, / mothers. She's also one of my moms. It wasn't until she asked me she's like, what's your pronoun? And I was like, pronoun? Well, in an ideal world, I'd ask people to say they, them, because that feels more aligned with who I am. And she says, right. What do you mean in an ideal world? Like, what? Like, it's this world. This is the world. Right. From then on, she started referring to me as they, them. And then she started telling everybody that they should be referring to me as they, them, because I'd never asked anybody. Right. But when she let me know that it was okay to want to take up that space, it was mind blowing. Right. Cause I was 18 or 19 years old. It never even occurred to me to ask, even though I was working with people who identified the same way, even though I was working with people that identified the same way. I didn't, it never occurred to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's awesome that you're taking up that space. We want you to take up that space. And with that being said, you got that advice from one of your mothers. So Angel, they, them are currently a change maker. They lead the way. They lead the way for these communities because they're taking up this space. So they do have a message within their music, including their debut album, For Those I Loved, or For Those I Love. First thing I got to know, you got to tell our audience, what's with the title? Explain this to us.
So before we even came up with the title, my producer and I, we were sitting down, we were writing these songs and we were building them and bouncing all these ideas off of one another. And one of the things we acknowledged was a lot of these songs were not just love songs, but songs about love in general. Not just oh, I'm so in love with this person, but like I said, I wrote a song about somebody. I wrote a song about my gokum, right? That's someone that I love so deeply. And then there was a song about self-love, the need to put yourself first, and make some hard decisions for yourself. And so what we'd kind of established that it was an album about love. It really was an album. It's a project based for love. And so what I talked about in the song is, yes, it's I'm talking about myself and my own self-love, something that I'm coming to just trying to continuously harness, but also the love that I felt for others and the love that I feel for others. So yes. We wanted to communicate that feeling of yes, it's for those I love, but it's also for those I've loved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. It's pretty inclusive. You're allowing other people, because the way we listen to music is we want something to speak to us. And it could be for those that we have loved or the ones we currently love. So an
Mhm.
all-inclusive project, and Angel is able to come out with that. There are a couple songs I wanted you to mention. So there was one that you talked about where it's, you're trying to speak to everybody. And what song is that? What song is that where you're trying to resonate with everybody, no matter how they identify and who they are?
So there's a couple of them. I think I'm going to speak more specific, not to everybody, but just specifically to like minority groups.
Okay.
It's like specifically like oppressed minority, which is like most, which is if not all minority groups. But essentially, I wrote this song "Savage," and I also co-wrote it with a buddy of mine. His name is Milan Andre, and he's also a producer / singer-songwriter. He's a really dope human being. But it came in a period where Standing Rock had happened. I started writing it actually when Standing Rock had happened, and I kind of like left it in the dark. And when the raids at Wet'suwet'en and the Unistoten camps were happening, that's when I felt once again like, no, you need to finish this. You started it, you need to finish it. So I continued writing it, and I worked with Milan to build the song. And we even had an audio clip from the House of Parliament when Romeo Saganash said that the Prime Minister should just tell the truth and tell the Indigenous peoples that he doesn't give a bleep about their rights. And like, it just needed, like, I wrote it, yes, in mind specifically for Indigenous people, but then when I was listening to it, it really occurred to me it's not just for Indigenous people, it's for anyone who feels like their power was taken and is continuously taken. So for anyone who feels silenced in that regard, this song is for you. It's for you, and it's meant to empower. It's meant to remind us that we stand together when we're stronger that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Great message to have, and you seem to have great messages throughout. So they were transferred to you, and now you're transferring them back to other people, which is amazing. Very well done. With that being said, you have such great insights. This pandemic has been pretty testing to a lot of people and most of the industry. And we want to know how it's affected you. You had an album release still in July, correct?
Yes.
So the album release still happened in the middle of the pandemic. How were you able to make it so successful? What are you doing that other people are not, so that you remain successful during the pandemic?
Dang, that's a hard question. I think first, like how it's affected me was I had a bunch of with my first my first single release, I got a lot of shows that were booked like at festivals and events that were happening across Canada. And I was so excited, but then like you said, the pandemic happened and all those shows either got delayed or just completely canceled. So like that was that was work that I'd never that quantity had never even been faced with before. And so when that happened, it was kind of like it was kind of like a punch to the face, kind of, because it was just it was like, whoa, like people are listening. And we actually delayed the release because it was supposed to be released in April, but once again, COVID, and we were like, okay, we'll put it off because our plan was I wanted to have an album launch in Mistissini, in my hometown, so that I could celebrate with my folks, like with my people. All them masks that love me. I just wanted to be able to like celebrate with them. And then COVID, yes, especially COVID, happened, and that couldn't happen anymore. So what happened was instead of doing that, we decided like, screw that. We're still going to put it out. We're still going to celebrate. So we just switched everything to online. So we're like, okay, well, we're going to have a celebration. We're going to go listen to all these songs together, and we're going to talk about them. We're going to talk about the implications. We're going to talk about everything, like the process, the love, the everything, just all of it. So we did that. We held like a very brief Facebook Live event, which was nice. It was like an hour or something long. And I just like sat and talked and like almost like I think pretty sure I cried at some point, but I showed people my living quarters, my roommate / stuffed animal that is like my size almost. But I think the one one thing that I've noticed as a trend, not just during COVID, but even like pre-COVID, is switching to an online platform that is
Right.
easily accessible to everybody. Is like, I think is like the biggest thing that you can do for yourself as an artist. Because even like pre-COVID, everybody's switching, like everyone's switching to online stores. Not to say that if you don't have an online store that you can't be successful, but like even entrepreneurial artists that I know in my territory, like the reason their success is so successful is, even though their communities are supporting them, there's only so much that, like, so much content that their communities can buy, right?
Right.
So when they set up online stores, it gave them up, like, it gave other people access to their art. And the same thing for me is like, I still can celebrate. I can still celebrate with fans and people that love me by doing this, right?
Right.
So yeah, really focusing on your, like, your online platform and like how you're putting yourself out there and how you're presenting yourself is, I think, like one of the biggest things you should worry about as a content or slash music creator.
Awesome. And when did that click in for you? Like, was that like leading up to April when you knew that you had to delay the release, or were you already thinking about that before?
It was really a learning, like, I definitely had to have conversations with my manager about, like, okay, we're gonna need to get you a website at some point. Like, we're gonna need to, like, be able to, like, have a place that isn't just Facebook. Like, we're gonna need to have a place that actually is like a hub for everybody that wants to know about you.
Okay.
So we're still in the process of that. I even like applying for grants is another thing, right? In this period of time, especially now when like they recognize that, like, artists are in, like, are in some deep, you know, there's plenty of grants, especially youth grants, and that's something that's like really saved my like project, was youth grants.
Okay.
Like, whether that's, like, if you're an Indigenous person, like maybe with your local council, your local band, like that's what I did. Like, I straight up, like, asked my community for some money for this project because they have monies allocated for things like that.
Right.
And it's not just like Indigenous councils that you can go to the Canadian Council for the Arts. If you're like a Cree beneficiary, like, it's like specifically someone who is like of my nation, you can like apply under like Kanaka, which is the Cree Native Arts and Crafts Association. They also sponsored my project. You can like go for organizations like Taking It Global. They also provide youth grants, like micro youth grants. They're like they're not big grants, but they're enough to like help get you going where you need to go, you know?
Right.
Any kind of project. It could be like, oh, I want to build an online store, or I want to get materials so that I can deliver these materials or whatever to my community members or things like that. You know, like, there's so many ways you as a youth can benefit from these things.
Very cool. Very cool. So you've given us a lot of advice. Get virtual, everyone. Make sure that you go figure out where granting and funding opportunities do exist. For those in the Indigenous community, I would recommend you can even probably hit up Angel and her network and try to figure that out. But as she stated, there's a lot available. But with that being said, other advice that you can provide these emerging artists that are trying to do work during the pandemic, can't get showcase time, are having trouble, what can you tell them? What piece of advice can you give them that they can take from you and apply it moving forward?
I think, especially in these periods of lull where there's not much like there's nothing you can tangibly see that is happening, you have to remind yourself that everybody's got their ups and downs, and especially like in this climate, things are scary, right? Things are like, there's a lot of uncertainty going into the future, but remember that no matter what, like, your art, just stay true to it, just keep practicing it. And even if like you don't go for micro grants like I suggest, or you don't go for an online store, just keep doing your craft. Like, no matter what, you stay true to yourself and your own vision, and just keep harnessing it and developing that craft. Because even if you're not like super successful today, it could be that like 10-15 years from now, like, you've harnessed something so great that you just explode, because people like finally wake up and realize you're talented, man. You got it in you.
Very cool. Very cool. So keep at it. Be persistent, everyone. And tell us what you're working on. So you're continuing to work. I mean, you're doing this promo stuff for your debut album released in July. Everyone go check it out. It's available on Spotify. But what are you working on right now? What's coming up for you as well? Give us some insight of what things we should look out for.
Well, first, it's actually, the project's available anywhere. So anywhere you can stream music, you can listen to it. But currently what I'm working on is I'm working on one more live session. Well, not live session, acoustic session, I should say, because they're not live. They're not live. But acoustic sessions. And I'm also in the process, actually next month, we're going to be filming a music video for one of the songs off the project. And I'm so excited. So that's going to be set to release sometime in October. So that's some of the content that's currently happening. I am collaborating with some other artists, which I'm really excited about. There's some youth that recently reached out to me in hopes of building a song together. So that they were looking for songwriters, and they're like Indigenous, and they recognize that I'm Indigenous. And I was like, heck yeah, man, I love working with you. So why not? So kind of just doing that in my free time. And there's definitely some artists that I'm really looking forward to in the future, with working with Superman. We talked about once, or we talked about it a couple times, about working together. Like Superman's really dope. Mob Balance, but Northwest Kid and Earthchild, they're really dope rappers. They're awesome, and I really hope to work with them one day. CJ Grizz, who is another really dope artist, another person I'm really hoping to collaborate. Basically, anyone I can rope into, I will.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I mean, in that case, let the audience know, how can they get roped in? How do we follow you? What are your social media handles? We want to stay connected. We want to follow.
So I am on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, all under Angel Baribeau Music. So just my name and music. Come and find me. And if you do maybe you want some advice, or maybe you want to talk about potential collaborations, wink wink, nudge nudge, go ahead. I'm always open to these kinds of things. And yeah, man. And even if you just want to if you want to talk more about the artist residencies that I take part in, if you want to talk more about my organization, I 100% believe in the work that I'm doing. It is an honor to work with not just my nations, but nations across Canada that are under this program. It is an honor. And if anyone wants to talk about these things, feel free to hit me up, because it's 100% something that I wholeheartedly believe in, because they've also believed in me, right? So it's a wonderful relationship. So yeah, just feel free.
Cool.
So Angel Baribeau Music, hit me up.
Rope in, guys. Slide in those DMs at Angel Baribeau Music. Happy to collaborate. Happy to give you advice. Very, very, very nice person. My goodness. I've never heard of anyone saying, hey, just hit me up. That's awesome. Very cool of you, Angel. We want to say thank you from here at Sincop8ed Noize. Thank you so much for joining us today. Hope you had a good time.
I definitely did. Thank you for giving me this platform.
Yeah, of course. And that's what we want to do. We want to give you this platform. We want to give as many people from those marginalized communities, or those people that are struggling as independent musicians, to get this platform. We want to give it to you here at Sincop8ed Noize Foundation. What we're doing each Friday at 4 p.m. on these music industry talks throughout this summer edition, each Friday at 4 p.m. during the month of August, we will be looking to talk to an independent musician so that they can share their journey, tell us about their current projects that you can listen to, like Angel Baribeau. Anywhere you can get music, you can go check out her album, which I will be doing. For Those I Love is what I'm going to call it. But For Those I Loved, in case that's what resonates with you. But here at Sincop8ed Noize, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram. We also have a YouTube channel, Professional Networkers. You can get on LinkedIn at Sincop8ed Noize. That's how you can follow us. Of course, we cannot do this without you, our audience. We do have a GoFundMe page for donations so that we can make these events and educational activities in support and promotion for emerging artists throughout Canada free. And we want to make it as accessible as possible. And that's only done with you. Visit our GoFundMe page. It is available on our website. It's available on the link below as well. Please donate so that we can keep getting people like Angel and dope people like her connected with other dope people. You like that word, eh?
I
Dope?
love that word.
Dope's her word. So if you're dope, Angel's dope, get connected. We want to connect you all. Fund us so we can help fund you. Give everybody access. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will be signing off. Take care, Angel.
Alrighty.